The ballroom fell silent when the homeless man walked through the gilded doors. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors, and 200 guests in evening gowns and tuxedos turned to stare at the intruder in threadbare clothes. Security moved forward, but the man raised his hand, and his voice carried across the room with quiet authority. "I'm here for Amara," he said. "Tell her Daniel came back." The bride froze at the altar, her white dress suddenly feeling like a costume. That name, that voice, it couldn't be. 23 years had passed since she'd heard it, since the day a starving boy promised her something impossible beneath a rusted fire escape in South Philadelphia. Amara had been 9 years old that summer, the daughter of Haitian immigrants who ran a struggling corner store in a neighborhood where hope went to die. Her parents worked 18-hour days, and she'd learned early that hunger wore many faces. She'd seen it in the eyes of the elderly woman who counted pennies for bread, in the trembling hands of the veteran who asked for day-old sandwiches, in the hollow cheeks of children whose parents chose between rent and meals. But she'd never seen hunger like Daniel's. He'd appeared one August evening, collapsed against the dumpster behind her father's store. She'd been taking out trash when she found him, a white boy maybe 12 years old, so thin his bones seemed to pierce his skin. His lips were cracked and bleeding. His hands shook. When he looked up at her, his eyes held a desperation that made her chest hurt. "Please," he whispered, "I haven't eaten in 3 days." Amara didn't hesitate. She ran inside and returned with everything she could carry: a sandwich, apple, chips, a bottle of water. She watched him devour the food with mechanical urgency, the way drowning people gulp air. When he finished, tears streaked the dirt on his face. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you help me?" "Because you needed help," she said simply. "What's your name?" "Daniel." He wiped his eyes. "My mom died last year. Foster system lost track of me. I've been on the streets since spring." For the rest of that summer, Amara became his lifeline. Every evening, she brought him food from the store, leftovers her parents would have thrown away. She brought him her brother's old clothes, blankets when the nights turned cold, books to read by streetlight. They talked for hours on the fire escape, sharing dreams that seemed absurd against the backdrop of their reality. She wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to build things, create beauty from nothing, design buildings that would touch the sky. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," Daniel told her one night in September, just before social services finally found him and placed him in a group home 3 states away. "You saw me when I was invisible. You fed me when I was dying. You treated me like I mattered when the whole world said I didn't." "You do matter," Amara insisted. "Then I'm going to matter even more someday." His voice carried a fierce intensity. "I'm going to make something of myself, Amara. I'm going to become rich, successful, someone who can help people the way you helped me. And when I do—" He paused, his young face serious beyond his years. "When I'm rich, when I've made it, I'm going to come back and marry you. That's a promise." She'd laughed then, thinking it was childhood fantasy. "You don't have to promise me anything, Daniel. I know I don't have to. I want to. You saved my life. Someday I'm going to spend the rest of mine making sure you never regret it." They'd lost touch after that. Years passed. Amara threw herself into school, earned scholarships, worked her way through medical school while her parents' store eventually closed, crushed by corporate chains and rising rents. She became a pediatrician in underserved communities, treating children who reminded her of the boy she'd once fed. She fell in love with Marcus, a successful lawyer who courted her with expensive dinners and promises of stability. When he proposed, she said yes, thinking she was making the practical choice, the safe choice. But now, standing at the altar, she stared at the homeless man being escorted toward the exit, and something inside her cracked open. "Wait!" she called out. The security guard stopped. Marcus grabbed her arm, his grip tight. "Amara, what are you doing?" She pulled away and walked down the aisle, past shocked guests and scandalized whispers. Up close, the homeless man didn't look homeless at all. His clothes were expensive beneath the artful distressing, his shoes Italian leather scuffed by design. And his eyes, those eyes she remembered, sparkled with something between mischief and triumph. "Daniel," he smiled, and suddenly he wasn't a homeless man anymore. He shrugged off the tattered jacket to reveal an impeccable suit, pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped away the strategically applied dirt. "Surprise," he said softly. "I told you I'd come back when I was rich." The room erupted in confusion. Marcus stormed down the aisle. "Who the hell is this?" "Amara, this is our wedding." "Is it?" Daniel's voice carried across the ballroom, calm and clear. "Because from where I'm standing, you're marrying a woman you don't actually know at all." He turned to address the crowd. "My name is Daniel Chen. Some of you might recognize me. I'm the architect behind the Camden Medical Center, the Morrison Children's Hospital, the Rivera Community Housing Project. 23 years ago, I was a homeless kid dying in an alley in Philadelphia. This woman, Amara Baptiste, saved my life." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn photograph, holding it up. It showed two children on a fire escape, Amara handing young Daniel a sandwich, both their faces illuminated by a streetlight's golden glow. "Her father took this picture without us knowing. He sent it to me 10 years ago, when I finally tracked down her family to thank them. He said, 'You should know what real kindness looks like so you never forget.' And I never did." Amara's hands trembled as she stared at the photograph. You became an architect. I became what I needed to become to keep my promise." Daniel's voice softened. "After they placed me in that group home, I got lucky. A teacher noticed I could draw. She got me into a program. I earned scholarships, worked 3 jobs through college, built my firm from nothing. Every building I designed thinking about people like us, Amara. People who get overlooked, people who deserve dignity." Marcus stepped between them. "This is insane. Amara, you're throwing away our future for some childhood fantasy." "No," Daniel said quietly. "I'm giving her a choice she deserves to make with full information." "Marcus, you told Amara you were a civil rights attorney, didn't you?" Marcus's face paled. "I am an attorney. You're a corporate attorney who defends companies against discrimination suits." Daniel pulled out a folder, handed it to Amara. "Including a case 3 months ago where you successfully prevented minimum wage workers from getting overtime pay they'd earned. You told Amara you shared her values. But your own emails, public record from that case, show you calling your clients entitled poor people looking for handouts." The folder slipped from Amara's fingers, papers scattering across the marble floor. She looked at Marcus with new eyes, seeing him clearly for the first time. "Is this true?" Marcus's jaw clenched. "It's my job, Amara. It's how I provide the life you wanted. The nice apartment, the vacations, the stability. I never wanted any of that," she whispered. "I wanted a partner who understood why I spend weekends at free clinics. Who understood why I can't walk past a hungry person without stopping. You called it my charity work, like it was a hobby." "Because it is," Marcus's composure cracked. "You're a doctor, Amara. You could be making 3 times what you earn, living in a real house instead of that cramped apartment, but you insist on working with people who can barely pay you. I thought marriage would change that. I thought I could make you see reason." The silence that followed was deafening. Amara looked at the man she'd almost married, then at the boy she'd once saved, now grown into someone who'd never forgotten. "Get out, Marcus," she said quietly. "The wedding is off." Marcus's face twisted with rage and humiliation. He grabbed his jacket, pushed past Daniel, and stormed out, taking half the guests with him in a wave of uncomfortable exodus. The remaining people sat frozen, unsure whether to leave or stay. Daniel watched Amara carefully, his expression unguarded. "I didn't come here to ruin your wedding," he said. "I came because I made a promise 23 years ago, and I've spent every day since trying to become worthy of it. But Amara, I'm not asking you to marry me. That was a child's promise. What I'm asking is if you'll let me take you to dinner. Let me tell you about the hospitals I've built with free pediatric wings in every one. Let me show you the housing projects designed to give dignity to people society ignores. Let me prove that the boy you fed with your family's food never forgot what real kindness looks like." Amara looked at her wedding dress. At the elaborate reception her parents had somehow scraped together money for, at the ruins of the future she'd thought she wanted. Then she looked at Daniel, and she saw not just the successful architect, but the hungry boy who'd promised her the impossible. She saw someone who'd turned trauma into purpose, who'd become rich not to hoard wealth but to help the version of himself that still lived on streets across America. "I have one question," she said. "Anything? Why the homeless disguise? Why not just walk in and introduce yourself?" Daniel's smile turned sad. "Because I needed everyone in this room to see what you saw that night in the alley. An invisible person, someone easy to ignore, someone they'd judge in 3 seconds and dismiss as worthless. I've been watching you for months, Amara. Watching how you treat everyone the same, whether they're CEOs or janitors. But Marcus, he walked past 3 homeless people on his way into this venue without even seeing them. I wanted you to see that contrast. I wanted you to know exactly who you were marrying. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks, but she was smiling. You're absolutely insane. Probably. 23 years is a long time to remember a promise. And yet you did. And yet I did. Amara looked at her parents, sitting in the front row with expressions of shock and wonder. Her father nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. Her mother wiped away tears. Then Amara did something that would become family legend. She reached up, pulled the veil from her hair, and handed it to the nearest bridesmaid. I need to change out of this dress, she said. And then I'd very much like to have that dinner, but Daniel. I'm not ready for marriage, not today, maybe not for a long time. I waited 23 years, Daniel said softly. I can wait 23 more if that's what you need. What I need, Amara said, her voice steady and sure, is to get to know the man you became. Not the boy I remember and not the architect from news articles. The real you, and I need you to know the real me. The one who spent so many years helping others that she forgot to ask herself what she actually wanted. That sounds perfect, 6 months later. They were eating takeout on the floor of Amara's cramped apartment, designing a free community medical center together. A year after that, Daniel proposed again, this time with a ring made from melted-down metal from the old fire escape where they'd first met, which he'd tracked down and purchased from a salvage yard. 2 years after that, they married in a simple ceremony in the same neighborhood where a 9-year-old girl had saved a starving boy's life. The reception was held in the community center they'd built together, surrounded by people both rich and poor, powerful and forgotten, all treated with equal dignity. On their wedding night, as they danced beneath string lights in a room filled with laughter and hope, Amara whispered, "You kept your promise." "We both did," Daniel replied. "You promised me that I mattered. You promised me with every sandwich, every conversation, every moment you treated me like a human being worth saving. I just spent 23 years learning to see myself the way you saw me that summer." The lesson neither of them spoke, but both understood was this. True wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or buildings or status. It's measured in the promises we keep, in the dignity we extend to those society overlooks, in the courage to choose truth over comfort. Amara had fed a hungry boy when she had little herself, expecting nothing in return. Daniel had built an empire of compassion, never forgetting where he came from. And together, they proved that the smallest acts of kindness can echo across decades, transforming not just individual lives, but the very meaning of success itself. In the end, they were both rich in the only currency that ever truly mattered, the knowledge that they had seen each other's humanity when the world demanded they look away.